This video is made possible by my patrons on Patreon. Hello everyone, my name is Ziamaro and welcome to Battlebright Sage. Today we're returning to our Comp Spotlight series. So far we've only really looked at comps that exist in the current meta. And that is useful because if you're looking for a comp to play right now, you'll want something that is effective in the current meta. But you know what? There are other comps available that may not be as effective right now, but the strong synergies still exist. So today we're looking at one of those comps with Freya and Ezmo. As a quick side note, it's kind of interesting that each of the comps we've looked at revolve around two of the champions, with a third one slotted in depending on the situation. But having said that, the natural third champion in this comp, at least in my opinion, is Xander. This comp did have a brief moment in the sun, and to be perfectly honest, at the time it was crazy overtuned. I'm talking about that time before the Xander nerfs, before the Freya nerfs, and during that brief period of time when Ezmo could do some absurd damage with his feedback battle rate. And while the comp was stupidly overtuned at the time, it did give us an opportunity to see a really exciting comp. So then, how does it work? If you had to assign the title of Dive Comp to one composition, it would probably be this one. While I said the synergies of this comp are very simple, the execution can be pretty tough. The comp is very fast paced, and as someone who's played support with this comp, I can tell you that it's pretty hard to keep track of everyone's cooldowns. The divey aspect of the comp is quite self-explanatory. If Freya and Ezmo see an opponent make a mistake, there's a good chance they can jump in and punish them for it. Most comps require your opponent to both make a mistake and be in a bad position. But thanks to Freya and Ezmo's mobility, and especially when you throw in the safety net of a Xander portal, this comp can often afford to dive deeper than most comps could. But the thing is, jumping in when an opponent makes a mistake is easier said than done. So how exactly does this comp force a mistake? Well, Freya and Ezmo both have a pull mechanic. Freya with her counter and Ezmo with his chaos grip. The ideal scenario for this comp is to get an early pull onto an opponent. If you manage to catch someone with a limited number of outs, they may be forced to space away from you. For example, if you manage to pull Alicia or Older in, they may well be forced to use their only mobility skill to get away. And at this point, Freya and Ezmo might dive in and do as much damage to that person as possible. Of course, we're talking hypothetical scenarios here. In a real game, it rarely ends up being as simple as pulling someone in, forcing their space, and then diving them. More realistically, Ezmo and Freya will often need to use their space abilities to avoid opponents' abilities. So quite often with this comp, what you'll usually be doing is looking for an opportunity. Because the second you get one, you can really run with it. That's the more realistic execution of this comp. Finding an opportunity and then seizing it with both hands. So once you do find that opportunity, you can maintain some immense pressure. This is one of those comps that can afford to chase their opponents into spawn. That doesn't mean you always should, but it is possible with this comp, especially with Xander as your support. One other combo you have when the stars align is combining Ezmo and Freya's ultimates. If you catch someone with no iframes or mobility, you can do some insane burst. In a real game, you're not going to be able to do that often, but even just the threat of that combo will make your opponents think twice before wasting their mobility. In terms of buffs and debuffs, there isn't really much to worry about here. You've got the incap from Freya, you have the silence from Ezmo. Ezmo does have his EXQ for a shield, but other than that, most other buffs and debuffs are self-serving. So most of your utility comes from the support you play with. So let's take a look at support options. As I keep mentioning, Xander is a no-brainer for this comp. He increases the damage during burst windows with his arcane catalyst, he reduces damage taken with hearts, and he offers some great CC with his sheep. But the main reason you would take Xander with this comp is Portal. While Freya and Ezmo can do some great damage by spacing aggressively, doing so comes with some obvious risks. If Freya and Ezmo both space in to punish someone, it's quite easy for your opponent to turn that pressure around. But when you throw Xander into the mix, you can give your team a way of getting back out when they're out of cooldowns. Right now though, Xander isn't in the best state. He's not as bad as people think, but he's not the apex support he once was. So let's take a look at some other options. As you can see in the footage, XL Wizards opted for Pestilus as their support in this comp. The great thing about Pestilus is the added chaos he brings. Panic into panic into panic. And he can also peel for Ezmo when his space is on cooldown. Both the spiders and the queen are great at forcing a melee opponent to back off. Plus, if your opponent ults Freya or Ezmo when they're out of iframes, while Pestilus can't outright prevent that damage, he can reduce it significantly with Infest. Another support you can try here is Older. He adds a huge amount of damage damage to the comp. Plus, his E ability can help slow the opponent down, making it easier for Freya and Ezmo to chase. And as always, Alder is a great choice against ranged champions like Ashka or Jade, thanks to his EXQ. Honestly, you could probably shoehorn any support into this comp, but personally I would steer clear of Lucy and Paloma. Paloma just doesn't enable the divey playstyle very well, while Lucy can work, but it changes the dynamic of the comp significantly. One support that works really well on paper is Ulrich. He adds that extra layer of pressure and chaos with his space resets, but in practice it's quite easy to miss your spaces in this comp because of Freya's iframe spam and Ezmo's mobility. If you can consistently get your space resets as Ulrich though, he's a great choice. To sum it up, this comp is pretty much the epitome of organized chaos. When executed correctly, it's really hard for your opponent to keep track of what you're doing, and it really forces them to play on your terms. While the comp may have fallen out of the meta, the synergies are still there, just waiting to be exploited again in a future patch. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please feel free to subscribe for more Battlerite guides, news and discussion. If you'd like to help support the channel and get some unique rewards, then head over to patreon.com/battleritesage. And don't forget to check out twitch.tv/battleritesage. Until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.